Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Sweet Spot.
We are your hosts.
I'm Diane.
And I'm Michael Pinball Clemens.
And we are so excited to be here today.
The Sweet Spot really is joy unspeakable, having balance in all you do.
It's being grateful, even when things aren't great. The desire to help others when you may be hurting yourself.
It is submission to a sovereign God who is in control when things look good or bad.
The Sweet Spot means happy times are happier, challenging times are growth opportunities, and love is the ruler of the day.
The Sweet Spot is resting and sometimes wrestling in the arms of the Almighty.
Simply put, if you're in your sweet spot, you're probably abiding in the fruits of the Spirit.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
So we hope you join us as we take this journey and engage in topics that we hope will inspire,
encourage,
challenge,
uplift,
excite,
insight,
refresh,
restore,
revitalize,
comfort,
stimulate,
and strengthen each of you in your daily walk.
Welcome to The Sweet Spot. Hello and welcome to The Sweet Spot.
Welcome.
We're excited to be here once again. We're always excited to be in the sweet spot, and we hope that you are too. Today we have a very special guest joining us today, and he's been with us before. I don't know if you remember, but a couple months ago he was here with us sharing some of his philanthropy stories and the things that he do with young people. A really dear friend of ours. He's a phenomenal football player, played with my husband, with the Toronto Argonauts. He's a very well-educated young man and doing great things in the world. So we want to welcome to the Sweet Spot, Mr. Orlando Bowen.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Welcome. We like to call him Bo. So welcome back, Bo.
Thank you, kindly. Thank you, kindly.
Yes,
honored to be here.
Yes, and my wife, she thinks so favorably of me, and I'd like to say I was young enough to play with you, but I coached you.
Yes, coach. That's right.
Yeah, we had a chance last time. We went in some great detail, and we had to have you back. So we had a couple shows with you, but there's a big part of your story that we kind of talked around a little bit that I think we want to have be the focus of the show today. And so however you'd like to set it up, I'm just going to open the floor to you.
Okay. Awesome.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
So the journey, as you know, has always been about like what can we do to give back, and life has its ups and downs.
That's right.
And will throw things at you, and it's not so much like what we do or don't do, what we have or don't have. It's really what do you do with those moments, and with the ups and downs. What do you do with that, right? So I've always felt like God has used one thing to prepare me for something else, right? And to get you like mentally in a space where it's like, okay, all right.
There's a reason.
There's a reason. Absolutely. So, I had a chance to do a lot of volunteer work when I came to the Canadian Football League. I was working in IT. Had a conversation with somebody who we know very well while I was working there, and about the invitation to come back. And my question was, will I have a chance to make a difference? Because that was infinitely more important than just the game. The game was more of a platform, a vehicle to be able to serve. So not having full grasp of Michael's commitment to community while I was in the States, she said, actually, if you make the team, you and I will go out and make a difference. So he was true to that. And immediately as I made the team, I was like, okay, what can we do to help? What can we do to serve? So I got involved in working with schools and we went in as a monitor, actually, school monitor, and they said, you know what? If you see a kid with their hat on, could you just ask them to take it off and, get kids to class when the bell goes? And I was thinking I could probably do a lot more than that. I think we have more that we're bringing to the table than that. So, it was really about building relationships.
Yes.
Right, and so that's what I did. I opened a weight room, I opened the gymnasium, did stuff in the library, computer lab, to create opportunities for young people to gather
Right.
and to be in a safe space. And the weight room conversation started off like, how do I get my arms to be like that? Those were the questions,
Right.
but it quickly transitioned to, this is what I'm going through, and I need help.
So it started with you exceeding expectations, right? Them coming in and saying, here's a pro athlete, he's in the hall, we want to do an extension of the anti-bullying program, right? So we want to come in and we want to have these leaders come in who can guide young people through, who they can see and look up to. Maybe a little bit different than a teacher.
Right.
It says it takes a village to raise a child, right?
Absolutely.
And so you started in this capacity, but they didn't have great expectations, right? They just kind of really wanted you to kind of babysit kids a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But you took that to another level.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And to be fair, maybe some people that were serving in that role, maybe that's all they wanted to do.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Right? But for me, again, understanding purpose,
Right.
my purpose for coming back to Canada was to serve.
Right.
So I'm looking at like, what else can I do to actually empower these young people to be able to step into their possibilities. So I was doing that and doing some work with Big Brothers Big Sisters and Sick Kids Hospital and Covenant House, and we used to go down and read stories to kids who didn't get a chance to go home, and just a lot of different things. Marnie's Lounge, I think we went together. So just trying to pour out.
Right.
And so I played 3 seasons with the Toronto Argonauts. I then played 1 season with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, was going into my extension year with them. So I was excited, fired up, about to go out and celebrate with some of our friends. So we decided to meet up at a carpool location and then head downtown. I got to the location first. I was waiting on them to arrive, so I was talking to one of them on the phone, and then I see 2 guys walking towards me. And they're jeans and t-shirt type guys. So they said, "Hey man, what you got? Got any drugs?" And so in my mind, I'm thinking, why would that be the first thing, first of all, that you're asking me? But anyhow, you don't know me, you don't know why I'm here, and what I'm about. So I just said, nope, and went back to my phone call. One of the guys stopped at the rear of the vehicle. The other guy kept walking, and the guy that stopped says, "Are you sure? You sure you don't have anything?" And I'm thinking, why would someone ask you if you're sure? So I was about to respond, but then I thought, there were 2 of them. Where's the other guy? And he was standing in my blind spot. So that's when I was thinking, okay, something's up. What's going on? I take a step back so I could see both of them, and I asked, like, what's going on? And to make a long story short, they were both armed. They ended up grabbing me, getting me down to the ground, wrestling me down, and they beat and beat and beat until the skin on my head was split. And I remember, I'm laying face down on the pavement, and I'm thinking, all the things that I had thought that one day I'm going to do, because when I came back to Canada, I thought, okay, this is cool, like we're able to serve in this way, but then you start to have ideas and thoughts about how you could contribute in a greater way. So I had all these things kind of in my mind in terms of, one day I'm gonna, start an organization that will empower young people, and one day I'm going to make a connection with Habitat and have young people physically toil and build something. And here I was, and it was about to be over. And I think so one of the things was, I was married. At the time, we had 1 child, and Sky, my wife, was pregnant with our second. And there's, as a parent, there's certain things that I always dreamt about, being able to even do with our son. And being able to teach him to tie his laces and just run around and play games and all those things. I just took it for granted that one day I'll be able to do those things. And here I was, and none of that was going to happen anymore.
Right.
And in that moment, I thought, God, not like this.
Right.
Not like this, God.
Wow.
you know, and it was just like, it was so, I was just like, man, I just want to see Sky and Dante and our unborn child again. You know, it's just, it was so just crazy. It just seemed so crazy that this is how I was going to die, like this.
Right.
So anyhow, it ended up that the two guys were two police officers. Corrupt undercover police officers. And so the one of the things that really challenged me was, like, these guys worked for the police force that I was a spokesperson of.
Oh, wow.
Right? The force that we did so much work
That's
in the
right.
community with, and went out there with other officers into schools and empowered, like, young people to stand up. If you see something that's not right, you need to stand up. There are so many great police officers out there doing amazing work for the right reasons.
Right.
So I knew that, like, when they realized that I was their spokesperson and that we did all this work, someone was going to stand up and say, this isn't right. We need to do something, right? But what ended up happening was the two gentlemen must have panicked. They called for backup. Backup now, police cars now come to the scene, and I'm thrown into the back of a cruiser, and one of the officers comes and he takes my wallet and he sees my CFL player's card. And he says, "Is this you?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "This is you." So I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Oh, shoot." Okay. And then he left. So I'm thinking, okay, he realizes that I,
Right.
all the work that we do. The next thing I know, I'm being taken to jail. Yeah, so it's not making sense. It's not adding up to me, and I'm taken to jail, and
This is like a terrible version of punked.
yeah,
Right, just
yeah.
kind of like something that there's an all the time. You like there's got to be
There
a
has to,
story.
yes.
Right. Something.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. In
It's
my
going
head,
to
I'm
sort
like,
itself out.
It has to.
Wow.
Right.
Right. It has to. So I'm in the jail cell, and I'm bleeding, and like I could feel it was just crazy. I could feel like the blood running down my face, and so two guys came by the cell and they looked in and they said, "You don't look well." And I said, "I don't feel well." And they said, "Yeah, your blood got on a couple of our guys. Do you have any diseases that we need to test them for?"
Wow.
And I was thinking, that's what you're gonna ask me?
Wow.
I was hurt.
Wow.
I was like, in that moment, in that interaction,
Right.
I felt so less than.
Right.
I felt just dehumanized. I was just like, why would that be the question that you're gonna ask? You see the state that
Not
I'm
if
in.
you're okay.
No.
Can we take you to the hospital?
No, none of that. It was like, do you have any diseases that we need to test our guys for? And so I said, no. And they walked off, and I'm just processing, like, what's happening? It just doesn't make any sense. So hours pass, and in that time, like, it felt like the room was getting dark and getting smaller, and so I just was like, okay, I have to just stay awake, because I don't know what would happen if I fall asleep. So
Right.
just stay awake. So I'm just trying to keep my blood flowing. I'm moving side to side, pacing, and then I hear them releasing people and asking others how they're getting home. So I figured, okay, I kept asking for my phone call, and they kept denying me my call. So I figured maybe they're just gonna release me like they're releasing these other folk.
Right.
So when an officer was walking past, I said, "Excuse me, when do I get to go home?" And he says, "Home? You're not going home. You have a bail hearing." So I'm thinking, a bail hearing? So I said, "A bail hearing for what?" And he says, "Don't you know what you've been charged with?" And I said, "Charged?" He said, "Yeah, you've been charged with assaulting a police officer
Oh my God.
and possession of a controlled substance." So I thought, that's impossible. You have to. So I'm looking at him, and I was just, I don't know what, I was just trying to understand what he was saying. And I'm looking at him, and he says, "You know what you look like? You look like a piece of SHIT, that's what you look like." And then he walked off.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, it's obviously had me confused with somebody, because he's confused, right? Maybe there's someone in a cell adjacent to mine, and they've got me mixed up, but it'll
They'll
sort
figure it
itself out.
That's right.
So my jail cell opens up, something, okay, they've sorted it out, they've come to say, you know, we apologize, what have you. But they handcuffed me, and then handcuffed me to 3 other guys to take us to the courthouse. That's when it sunk in that this was for real, and that the charges were real, and that I had no idea what was going to happen next. But you know, it was actually, even in that, in the moments after like the physical assault, I felt like there was refuge. Even in the, you know what I mean? Like in the, because again, I thought this is it.
Right.
Like my life it's over. And I'm like, I remember being pinned down on the ground, and one of the gentlemen was on my back, and he had my hand, one arm behind me, and he was trying to get my other arm, and the other one was squat down and just trying to get like a flush punch into my face.
Right.
Like, so, and all I could think was protect your skull, protect your organs, like with all the shots, right? So I was just like, why would it just didn't make sense in terms of why someone would want to do that to someone else. So long story short, I'm taken to court, and the whole court process begins. My physical injuries prevent me from being able to go to camp, to training camp. But in the court scenario, you know, imagine the officer, after all, you know, that we know to be true, one of the officers comes in, puts his hand on the Bible, takes the oath to tell the truth, and then says to the judge, Your Honor, he's 6'2", and he's trained to hurt people. I've never been so afraid for my own life. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, wow, oh my God, how could you say that? Like, how could you take the oath to tell the truth and then say that? Wow. And you know that that's not the truth. So anyhow, I remember him saying, you know, in my 17 years on this force, I've never been so afraid for my life or my partner's life. And then he looked at me and he smiled. And in that moment, I thought, there's somebody that's broken. There's someone that needs help. Because only someone that's broken could do that to somebody else. Because I thought, what could he possibly have been through to allow him that? Right. To put that on somebody else when he knows what the truth is. So I started praying for him. I was like, I'm like, he needs healing, man. Wow. Like, he needs help.
Wow.
Powerful.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just, it was just like a crazy, very surreal experience. Yeah. So I was just praying for him to get the help that he needed and praying for the truth to come out. So I'll fast forward a bit. We get close to the verdict, and I got a call from the Toronto Star, and the reporter advises me that one of the officers, actually the arresting officer in my case, was just arrested by the RCMP for trafficking cocaine. Wow. They found 17 kilos at his house. Wow. So now, I get off the phone with the reporter, and then the Crown attorney, who's prosecuting me, calls, not knowing that I had the conversation.
So this process is over what period of time?
So this process right now is over like an 18-month period.
So for a year and a half, this lie was perpetrated, right, and sustained, right? Yep. And you actually had worked in sensitivity training with the police officers on that very same force, had been to schools with the very same officers, right? Or not those officers, but officers on that force, right? And this continued for a year and a half.
Yes. And that was one of the things that was so hurtful.
Yes, absolutely.
And I thought, man, how many people, like, again, counting our blessings, right? So on the way so let me go back to the journey from the courthouse to the hospital, the morning after the assault. So I'm thinking, I'm gonna call the chief,
Right.
And because I would meet with the chief almost on a monthly basis to talk about community things. So, you know, I called, I left a message for him. And I remember just thinking, you know, like, you know what we stand for,
Right,
Chief.
right,
You know what
right,
we're about, right? These types of things can happen. I also called the mayor and left a message for her. Now, she showed up at the hospital and saw me and says, "What happened to you?" And I explained to her, and she said, "Did they know who you are?" And I said, "Madam Mayor, this is not supposed to happen to anyone." And she was kind of like, "Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right." And then, you know, it was just the whole thing. I'm trying to figure out how is this possible that it could happen. But I think one of the turning points in terms of my thought process with respect to why we might have been going through this challenge was when I was at the hospital and the nurse comes up to me and says, "What happened to you?" And I looked at Sky and I said, "She's not gonna believe this." So I turned back to the nurse and I said, "I got jumped." And the nurse says, "By who, the police?" And I said, "Why would you say that? Why would that be your response?" And she said, "Unfortunately, I see it way more than I'd like to. But usually it's teenagers or newcomers or people who don't speak English well. You don't really fit that bill." But the thing was, those groups were the groups that we were working with. So when she said that, I realized this isn't about me.
Wow.
This is about being a voice for those who, if they were in this situation, they would feel like they have no reason to have hope or have a voice. That's what this is about.
So you lived what they go through.
Right.
Wow.
And so it was like, we have to get through this because there are folks who may go through this or other challenges who may feel like they have every reason to give up, and they shouldn't, because there's hope.
Never asked you this question before, but have you talked to people who have had this similar experience afterwards?
I have.
Yeah. Have you talked? Have any of them actually had to serve jail time? Right.
We've had
Innocent.
some that have they've been advised, because again, it's either they go to like a public defender, like legal aid type of scenario, because they can't afford representation. And the folks that will advise them will say, "Listen, just plea to a lesser, you know, plead guilty to a lesser charge, so it just goes away." Yeah. And that's initially when we were looking for representation, that's what we had some folks say to us. "Listen, you know, you don't want to ruffle any feathers, so just, you know, just kind of lay low, and if you could just keep a low profile." And I said, "Why? I've done nothing wrong.
Good for you.
I've done nothing. If anyone should be keeping a low profile, it should be the gentleman that I was assaulted by, not me. I have done it. I'm here with a purpose to serve." And even though this incident has happened, that doesn't change my heart. I still want to serve. As a matter of fact, I will still serve alongside. I'll serve alongside with those two officers that I was assaulted by, because there is power in understanding that it's not about us as individuals, right? It's about doing what we can with what we've been gifted with, even those things that people consider to be insurmountable challenges.
You took the time to write a letter.
Yeah.
Right. Can you disclose the contents of that letter?
Yeah. So I was actually sharing it with a friend earlier today. So it reads, "To my brothers, Sheldon and Grant, life is a game, and we could win this thing. I come to you humbled and broken, but with a calming peace. I apologize for my feelings of anger, disappointment, and malintent towards you, towards life, and towards the system during this ordeal. I know that this had happened for a reason, and that the reason would probably be revealed to us in time, but I began feeling sad, angry, and impatient, but that's not who I am. This may sound strange, but the fact of the matter is we're on the same team. So I want to courageously express the fact that I'm forever in debt to you for this experience, as it's forever changed my life. It's made me a better father, better husband, better human being, someone who could fully understand and appreciate what it means to feel broken and to feel like the weight of the world is on their shoulders. Right? So I want you to know that I'm praying for you. I want you to know that you're forgiven 100%, loved 99%. I'm still working on that last one.
Yes, sir.
Today. But through this, we have a tremendous opportunity to help shift perspectives. So I'm grateful for that, and I embrace that. So please know that there's someone out there that cares about you, loves you, wants the best for you and your families. I want you to know that I play this game of life for you.
Bo, how did you where did that come from?
So part of it was from just like, so I'm praying and I'm reading like Psalms 37 and I'm reading Isaiah 40,
Right.
and I wanted people to understand that it's not about me. It's not even about them. There's a bigger narrative, right? There's a bigger story. There's a bigger opportunity for us to help people who feel like they should have no reason. But the challenge was sitting in a courtroom, when they would walk in, they would look at me as though like they wanted to be mad at me before I could be mad at them.
Right.
So they were looking at me like, I know you're, like I hate you more type thing. And I'm looking at them like, bro, I love you.
Wow.
This is like, it's not even about you. Right? So, but I had no venue to express that. So, I remember sitting down, I actually went to a business conference and they were talking about, what do you need to let go of to step into your greatness, and who do you need to forgive? And I was like, man, what is this, man? I don't have to. And then I thought about the two officers. And so I sat down and I started writing a paragraph. As I started to write, my hand couldn't keep up with the thoughts that were flowing from my head, and the tears were flowing, and I was just writing. I wrote 5 pages. I just sat and wrote 5 pages. So what I read is an excerpt of that. But when I finished writing, I was like, yes. Like that's what I needed to share. Like I need them to know that it's not about us, man. Right. And despite what's happened, we're even more powerfully positioned now to help people who feel like they shouldn't have hope. Yes. But we have to make that choice. So here's what I choose to do with the challenge, right? I'm going to, people came and said, so are you going to go back and train police officers? And I said, I'm open to it. But the biggest challenge, a number of my friends that are on the force came and they would say, I wish I could do something. I wish I could say something. And I said, so say something. Right. And they said, I can't, because I'm just one person and it's so big. That was the impetus for the birth of One Voice, One Team, to empower young people that are this big to stand up for the right thing, even if it means standing alone.
That's right.
To stand up, because if we could empower them when they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age to do that, it will give them a foundation and a rock to hold on to when life throws stuff at them and everything around them says, sit down and be quiet. They'll stand up.
Wow.
That's powerful. I'm speechless right now. Praise God for you.
God is good.
Praise God for you.
The officers,
Yes.
are they still on the force today?
One was arrested and sentenced to 5 years, 8 months in prison. I'm not sure where he's at on his journey. I know he went in to serve about a couple of years ago. The other officer has been promoted a couple of times, so he's still on the force. And a number of folks, when I wrote the letter, a number of people said, so what did they say? What did they say to you when you gave it to them? And I said, honestly, the letter is not even for them.
Right.
It's for us.
That's right.
Right? Because, sometimes we have these things holding us back from being able to step into what God has presented for us, what God's prepared for us. But because we're holding on to something else, we can't. we can't get to it.
Right.
Right? So what is it that we need to let go of? Or who is it that we need to, like, there may be something, some animosity or just something you need to just clear the air about so that you can step into what you've been gifted. So, you know, that's, it's this journey that we're on.
You know, I asked a question that was a little bit nearsighted and myopic, and you answered with the same latitude as you've expressed here on the show, and it is courageous, but more than courageous, it's spirit-filled, and so we thank God for you. You're an amazing man, and your testimony will ring through eternity. And we just pray for you and One Voice, One Team, your program, and we look forward to the next time because it always goes too fast.
It does.
All right.
Yeah, that was powerful, and
it.
thank you so much, Bo, because you didn't have to share that.
Yeah.
So we appreciate your openness
Thank you.
with us and with our listeners today, because there are probably other young men
Yeah.
that needed to hear that story today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
And so we are going to end the show today, and we want to thank Bo once again for joining us and for sharing such a powerful story. And I think these words today are more fitting than ever. The words of Edward Everett when he says, "I am only one, but I am one.
Yes.
I cannot do everything, but I can do something.
Absolutely.
And what I can do, I ought to do.
Yes.
What I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do." Until next time, stay in your sweet spot.
Be encouraged out there. Be encouraged. What a message from a wonderful man who has been through, gone through. And it's not just for those who are going through something. It is a message for all of us to release hostility, to release tension, to release all of those things. Also to act, to do, to be.
Thank you, Bo. One voice,
team.
one team.
That's what's up. Thank you.